For Year 9s, we're going to be starting our unit of work on Romeo and Juliet, and we're going to start off the first few lessons with doing some background information about when and where that play was set, and also just looking at the general storyline, and that's what we're going to begin with today. But first, let's just have a look at some of the information you'll need for this unit of work. So there's going to be 16 lessons outlined in this PowerPoint. So you'll be given a sheet with text extracts. When we get to that section of the unit, look for that symbol in the resources folder for the help sheets that you need. As it says at the bottom, the duration of this topic will be longer than 16 lessons because there may be more time needed to complete activities, and there will also be obviously your read theory lessons that you do aside that, as well as reading. So we've got the knowledge organizer here, which you'll need to learn all of this information, particularly the subject terminology, because each of these terms we will be using when we're discussing Romeo and Juliet. So that information, look at the subject terminology, you need to learn those terms. Main characters in Romeo and Juliet then. We've got two different families, the Capulets and the Montagues. So in the Capulets, we've got Juliet. She's the daughter of the Capulets. Lord and Lady Capulet are her parents. Then we've got Nurse. Nurse is like the woman who has brought up Juliet, like a nanny sort of figure. So she's a neutral figure. She's sort of in between the two families, but obviously works for the Capulets. You've got Tybalt, who's Juliet's cousin, Rosaline, who's a friend of the family, and Paris, who is a friend of Lord Capulet. And then on the side of the Montagues, we've got Romeo Montague, so he's the son of Lord and Lady Montague. Friar Lawrence, who advises Romeo and Juliet. Friar is like a vicar or a priest, so he's a neutral character. He's a sort of the religious character in the story. Then we've got Benvolio, who's Romeo's cousin, Mercutio, Romeo's friend, and Balthazar, who is another friend of Romeo's. So the general plot of Romeo and Juliet then, we've just got 10 very short bits to tell you what happens in the play here. The prince threatens the Montagues and the Capulets with execution if they continue to fight and disturb the peace. Romeo is in love with Rosaline, so at the beginning of the play, it's not Juliet he's in love with, it's a girl called Rosaline. Romeo and Juliet meet at the Capulet ball and fall in love, so that's like a big party. The balcony scene, they arrange to get married in secret. Then we've got their wedding. After that, Tybalt kills Mercutio, and then Romeo kills Tybalt. Juliet's parents arrange her marriage to Paris, and she goes to Friar Lawrence for the potion that will put her into a deep coma and make her appear to be dead. The letter to Romeo doesn't reach him, and he hears that Juliet is dead, and he buys poison. Juliet's tomb, Romeo kills Paris and takes the poison. Juliet awakes and kills herself with his dagger. And then finally, the families agree to stop their feud. That's a very, very quick overview of the whole play. We're going to look at it in more detail. We've got 15 spellings here that, again, I would like you to learn, as well as those key terms. We need to know how to spell each of these words. We're going to be using them a lot as we go through this unit of work. So for our first lesson then, let's get down date, title and learning objectives. So Romeo and Juliet, Acts 1 and 2, and to have a secure understanding of the start of the play. So we've mentioned already those main characters. Let's just go through those again. So Romeo, the son of Lord and Lady Montague, falls in love with Juliet. Their families are sworn enemies. Juliet, the daughter of Lord and Lady Capulet, falls in love with Romeo. Their families are sworn enemies. Mercutio, Romeo's friend, part of the Montague gang. Benvolio, Romeo's cousin, part of the Montague gang. Rosaline, a girl that Romeo is in love with at the start of the play. She does not love him back. Tybalt, Juliet's cousin, part of the Capulet gang, a violent man who is always looking for a fight. Nurse, who is Juliet's maid, who's looked after her all of her life. Paris, a wealthy man who loves Juliet, and Juliet's family want her to marry him. And then Friar Lawrence, the local priest, he supports Romeo and Juliet's relationship. So what I'd like you to do is just copy down those main characters, please. So you've got a copy of that either in your books, if you've got your English books with you, or on some paper. Let's get that information down. We've got another plot summary here, but I'm going to skip through that. Obviously, spend some time reading that through. And we're going to start looking at the story of Act 1. So this is very, very, very basic, but you need to read this information through and then answer the questions on the next slide. So the play is set in Verona, Italy in the 15th century. The story concerns two rich and powerful families. For some reason, the two families are bitter enemies. One family is the Montague family. They have a son called Romeo. The other family is called Capulet. They have a daughter called Juliet. Juliet is 14. The two families are always fighting. At the beginning of the play, fighting breaks out in the streets. The Prince of Verona arrives. He threatens to execute anyone else involved in street fighting. Romeo thinks he's in love with a girl called Rosaline. She does not return his love. A rich young man called Paris wants to marry Juliet. The Capulets are having a party. Romeo finds out that Rosaline will be at the party. Romeo, Benvolio, and their friend Mercutio go masked to the party. Romeo meets Juliet. They fall instantly in love with each other. One of the Capulets, Tybalt, recognises Romeo at the party and threatens to get even with him. So, using that information, you need to answer the questions on the next slide. So we've got 15 questions. So you're going to need to pause this now and answer the 15 questions before you go through the answers on the next slide. So give yourself probably about 10 minutes to have a go at answering these questions. Make sure we're writing in full sentences, please. So our answers then. So the first question, where does the story take place? It takes place in Verona, Italy. Question 2, which family does Romeo belong to? He's from the Montague family. Which family does Juliet belong to? Question 3, that's the Capulet family. How old is Juliet? Question 4, she is 14. Question 5, there's a feud between the two families. What does this mean? It means they're always fighting. Question 6, what does the prince say will happen to Montague or Capulet if any more fighting starts? He says he will execute them. That means he'll kill them. Number 7, who's Romeo in love with at the beginning of the play? Well, that's Rosaline. Question 8, does she love Romeo? No, she doesn't. It's what we call unrequited love, where somebody loves someone and they don't love them back. Number 9, who asked Juliet's father if he could marry her? That was Paris. Number 10, which family holds a party? That's the Capulets. Number 11, what persuades Romeo to go with his friends to this party? Well, it's because he knows that Rosaline's going to be there and he thinks he might be able to get her to change her mind. Question 12, which of Romeo's friends go with him to the party? That's Benvolio and Mercutio. 13, why do they have to go masked? Well, it's to hide their identity. So they've got masks on so people don't know who they are. 14, who does Romeo meet and fall in love with at the party? Well, that's Juliet. And question 15, who recognises Romeo and threatens to punish him for invading the party? That's Tybalt, Juliet's cousin. So you can mark those, and then let's move on to the story of Act 2. So here, you need to copy the story of Act 2 and fill the gaps with the words that are in bold at the top of the passage. So again, give yourself about 10 or 15 minutes to have a go at copying that out and trying to get the right words into the correct gaps. And then we can go through the answers. So, after leaving the party, Romeo leaves his friends and waits in the garden of the Capulet house. He stands beneath Juliet's balcony. He listens to Juliet as she says aloud to herself that she wishes Romeo were not a Montague. Romeo speaks to her. They declare their love for each other and agree to be married. Tybalt, Juliet's cousin, is angry because Romeo went to the party. He sends a letter to Romeo challenging him to a duel. Benvolio and Mercutio feel sure that Romeo will reply to the challenge. The following morning, Juliet sends her nurse to Romeo to make arrangements for the marriage. Friar Lawrence is amazed that Romeo has already forgotten Rosaline. Friar Lawrence agrees to marry them. He believes that if a Capulet and a Montague marry, the fighting between the families may end. So that's the end of our first lesson, and our next lesson is continuing, looking at Act 3, 4 and 5. Okay, thank you.